Tyler Perry's empire didn't just rise, it exploded. From sleeping in a car to building one of the most powerful film studios in America, the man became a symbol of hustle, grit, and black excellence. But lately, that glossy image is cracking. And the story behind the cracks? It's something nobody saw coming. It started with whispers, rumors that people brushed off as jealousy. Then came Katt Williams, the uncensored king of calling things out. And he didn't just stir the pot, he lit the whole kitchen on fire.
Well, here's a story time about how filming Meet the Browns was the most stressful and hardest thing that I've ever done in my entire life. I had no idea that Tyler Perry Studios' schedule was so drastic. If you're working on a regular network show, they take a whole week to film an episode. Tyler Perry Studios, they film an episode in one day.
He went straight at Hollywood's so-called gatekeepers, the ones who praise you publicly and pressure you privately. And he didn't just name names. He dropped one name that had the internet clutching its pearls: Tyler Perry. Now, this wasn't some comedy routine or trolling for headlines. This was Katt dead serious, saying out loud what others only hinted at in private. And just when you thought it was all talk, a massive $260 million lawsuit hit headlines. And suddenly, everything Katt warned us about started to sound a little too real.
The character was Jeffrey, a fat high school teenager who was very intellectual, who was getting bullied at school. I take 2 to 3 days to learn the entire script. On the day of filming, first thing we do is a table read. I know all of my lines, I'm ready to go. So the director, who is Alfonso Ribeiro Carlton in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, he starts to block us, telling the actors where to go, where to stand. Mr. Perry comes in, everything changes.
Katt didn't tiptoe around the issue. He marched straight into the fire. He said what nobody in the industry ever says out loud: that success in Hollywood isn't always about talent, timing, or even hard work. Sometimes it's about something else entirely, something unspoken. According to Katt, there's a pattern, a quiet system in place that rewards certain people only if they play along with certain rules. And who's sitting right at the top of that system, according to him? Tyler Perry. But here's the twist. Katt didn't come at him out of bitterness. In fact, he gave Tyler credit for his grind, his empire, his achievements. But right after that compliment came a curveball that had people's jaws on the floor.
So we literally run the entire episode for him, and he hates it. Does that mean I have to learn a whole new script? Yes, that's what it means. Mr. Perry, on the spot, starts rewriting the entire script, and he's feeding me the lines to say, and the director is kind of standing on the side like, you better do it, because if not, they will fire you. Here is where the shoe hit the fan. So in the middle of Mr. Perry changing up the scenes, he says, you know, I want Jeffrey to be gay, and he has a crush on his bully. That's not what I auditioned for.
Katt painted a picture of what really goes on behind those studio gates. A world where landing a dream role might come with quiet expectations. He talked about a setup where rising stars are given golden opportunities, but not without strings attached. And while some brushed it off as just another Hollywood conspiracy, others started connecting dots that couldn't be ignored. Because right after Katt's comments went viral, another story dropped. And it wasn't a joke, it wasn't vague, and it wasn't anonymous. It was legal, detailed, and backed by receipts.
I'm glad you're here. Everybody wants to know, why'd you walk away from $50 million?
I wasn't walking away from the money. I was walking away from the circumstances with the newfound plateau.
Yeah.
It was completely outside of my frame of reference. I've been in show business since I was 14. I've heard the stories, seen these kinds of things play out in front of me.
Enter Brandon Jay, a young actor who thought he'd landed a breakthrough role on one of Tyler Perry's popular shows. He was cast as a confident high school athlete, a straightforward part he'd prepared for, rehearsed, and was excited to play. Everything seemed locked in, until the cameras were about to roll. Out of nowhere, the script changed. Suddenly, his character wasn't just a jock. He was rewritten into something completely different, with a whole new backstory and energy that Brandon never auditioned for. He didn't even get a heads up. One minute he's running lines with the cast, the next, he's being told to say things he never agreed to, playing a version of the character that caught him completely off guard. And the craziest part? The change came from the top. According to Brandon, Tyler himself walked in, took control of the set, and started rewriting the script on the spot, feeding new lines, shifting the scene's entire tone, and leaving everyone scrambling to keep up. The director, who had already blocked the scenes, just stood there, basically saying without saying, go with it or else. Brandon didn't call it out right then, because what could he do? You speak up, you risk losing the job. You go with it, and suddenly you're part of something you didn't sign up for. That moment stuck with him. And when Katt Williams started speaking out, Brandon realized he wasn't the only one feeling like something wasn't adding up behind the scenes.
I mean, you see before, look, Mariah Carey made a $100 million deal, and 3 months later, she's all of a sudden mysteriously crazy. Or Martin Lawrence punches through and he's waving a gun on the street screaming, "They're trying to kill me."
Yeah, we hear those stories.
And it always happens around the time of their career where it seems as though they're crossing over the next plateau.
Yeah.
It's incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
That's when things went from whispers to headlines. Derek Dixon, an actor from Tyler Perry's own series The Oval, stepped forward, and not with vague claims or cryptic interviews. He filed an official lawsuit, a $260 million lawsuit. And suddenly, the conversation wasn't just about industry rumors anymore. It was about dates, documents, and digital receipts. Derek says it all started back in 2019 at a Hollywood event where Tyler allegedly picked him out of the crowd and made a surprising offer, a potential role. At first, it seemed like the break every actor dreams of. Derek landed a small part on one of Perry's other shows, Ruthless. And for a while, everything felt like it was on the up. But then came an invitation to Tyler's Atlanta home, a meeting Derek says he assumed was about networking or mentorship. What followed, according to him, was a situation that felt increasingly uncomfortable. He says things were suggested, lines were crossed, and from that moment on, the dynamic between them shifted. In his lawsuit, Derek claims that after rejecting those uncomfortable moments, his character in The Oval suddenly became eerily specific, portraying someone lonely, unstable, and emotionally dependent. According to him, it wasn't just a role, it felt personal, like he was being cast to reflect something someone else wanted to see, not what fit the story. He even says private messages started coming his way, late-night ones that made him feel like the job wasn't just about acting anymore. And through all of it, Derek says one thing was clear: push back too hard, and it might all disappear.
He's got the whole world in his hands. Got the whole world in his hands. Hey, I'm just sitting here on my porch just looking. What am I looking at? I'm looking to the hills from whence cometh my help. For my help? Some of y'all know the rest. I just wanted to come on and just tell everybody, just be as calm as you can.
Now, this is where everything starts to spiral, because Derek's story didn't land in a vacuum. Once the lawsuit hit the news, people online began digging. Old interviews, strange casting choices, cryptic posts from other actors, all of it started to surface. And the patterns? Hard to ignore. Christian Keys, another actor who had worked on several Tyler Perry productions, gave an interview years ago that suddenly took on new meaning. He never named names, never pointed fingers. But what he described was all about power, pressure, and being pushed into corners behind the scenes. Fans didn't need much help connecting the dots. The timing of his roles, the people he worked with, it all pointed back to the same circle. And just like that, it felt less like one man's story and more like a chorus of actors all hinting at the same uncomfortable truth. Even 50 Cent, never one to stay quiet when drama breaks, jumped into the conversation. He posted a picture with Tyler, dropped a shady caption, and while it was half joke, half defense, it showed exactly how split the industry was. Some were brushing it off, protecting their business ties. Others were watching closely, realizing this might not be an isolated incident. And as more people stepped forward, even anonymously, the silence that used to surround these kinds of stories, it started to crack wide open.
This person is a predator, and he's one of several. And I have proof. It's not like I'm just making false accusations. The receipts, the recordings down to the police department, and let them hear this individual, the month and the year that he showed up to my apartment and offered me $100,000 to take my clothes off. He said, "I don't even need to touch you. I just want to see you naked."
For years, Tyler Perry represented the dream. The guy who beat the odds, who built a billion-dollar empire on stories about faith, forgiveness, and rising from nothing. But when these stories started hitting the timeline, fans who once praised that rise began looking at it differently. People started asking tough questions about how roles are really cast, who gets opportunities, and what those opportunities might secretly cost. Suddenly, old praise interviews felt like PR. And behind-the-scenes footage from past productions got rewatched with a new lens. Online, it wasn't just gossip anymore. It was full-blown investigation mode. Reddit threads, TikTok deep dives, comment sections on fire. And what people were seeing wasn't just a controversy, it was a potential pattern. Stories of actors feeling boxed in, characters written a little too specifically, sudden changes that seemed less about plot and more about control. And what hit the hardest? The realization that some of the most beloved moments in these shows might have come at someone's emotional expense. People who once admired Tyler's journey were now wondering how much of that journey was built on silence. On power that wasn't just used to uplift, but maybe to pressure? Because if even a piece of what Derek and others are saying is true, it's not just one man's story. It's a look at how power actually works behind Hollywood's glossy surface.
I declined. Because again, scenic route, I got my integrity with me. I'll take the long way around. I recorded it because I didn't trust him. And I had told him over and over. And he still always tried shit. So if people don't believe me, they can hear him. I can press play and you can hear the person and you'll know immediately who the person is that's offering me $100,000 to strip. You'll know right away and it'll break your heart.
This is where it gets chilling. Not because of what's being said, but because of how long it wasn't. Katt Williams warned us years ago, the moment you question the system will flip it on you. Call it out? You're bitter. Say too much? You're unstable. Walk away? Now you're the problem. And Hollywood's been playing that playbook for decades. Dave Chappelle lived it. When he walked away from a $50 million deal, people didn't ask why. They just called him crazy. The media spun his silence into a breakdown, like walking away from control was somehow proof you'd lost it. But now, with Derek's story hitting courtrooms and timelines at the same time, the silence around these issues is getting harder to keep. Because let's be real, how many actors have we seen vanish after speaking up? How many up-and-comers got a big break, then disappeared without a trace? And how many cryptic Instagram posts about toxic sets or protecting your peace were actually people trying to say something without saying too much? It's like there's an unspoken rule. If you want to keep working, keep your mouth shut. If you want to protect your reputation, don't question the people who signed the checks. And now that curtain's starting to lift. Slowly, quietly, but definitely lifting. Now here's where it all starts to feel like the beginning of something way bigger. Because Derek isn't backing down. His legal team says they're ready to take this all the way. And they're not just bringing claims, they're bringing evidence. Timestamps, texts, call logs, things that are harder to deny once they're out in the open. And if even one of those pieces holds up in court, the ripple effect could be massive. Suddenly, it's not just about Tyler Perry anymore. It's about who knew, who looked the other way, and how many other stories are still hiding behind smiles and red carpets. And that's the part that's got Hollywood holding its breath. Because once one person speaks and the world listens, others usually follow. It's already happening quietly. Actors dropping hints, casting directors avoiding questions, insiders tweeting just enough to stir the pot without saying too much. And fans? They're not waiting for official statements. They're rewatching old scenes with side-eye, combing through interviews for inconsistencies, and asking the question no one wanted to touch. How many people stayed quiet just to survive? Because if this is how things really work behind the scenes, the industry's shiny image might not just be tarnished, it could be completely rewritten. This isn't cancel culture, it's exposure. And now that it's started, the big question is, who's next? So here we are, one of Hollywood's most untouchable names, now at the center of a story that's unraveling faster than anyone expected. From Katt Williams sounding the alarm to Derek Dixon taking things to court, it's no longer just rumors. It's a conversation. A conversation about power, silence, and what really goes down when the cameras aren't rolling. The image is shifting, and whether this ends in redemption, reckoning, or more silence, one thing's clear. People are watching now, closely. But now it's your turn. What do you think? Is this the start of something Hollywood's been hiding for too long? Or just another headline that'll fade once the next story breaks? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't hold back. Are you riding with Derek? Still standing with Tyler? Or thinking this might be a little bit of both? Hit that like button if you're here for the truth, unfiltered and unapologetic. Subscribe and turn on notifications because what's coming next? You won't want to miss it. We've got more real talk, more receipts, and more stories the industry never wanted you to hear. This isn't over, not even close.